The Vanishing Diner. The back roads of eastern Oregon stretch for miles through mountain country, winding through valleys where small towns appear and disappear like mirages against the landscape. Two friends were taking the scenic route, camping where they pleased, following whichever road looked most interesting. They had time, they had supplies, and they thought they had nothing to worry about. The day started normally, morning light, clear roads, mountains in the distance, but somewhere around midday, something shifted. The weather changed with unnatural speed, not gradually, but as if someone had flipped a switch. The sky took on a quality the witness described as simply different. Not stormy, not clear, just wrong. They kept driving, dismissing the unease creeping up their spines. Mountain weather is unpredictable, everyone knows that. Then they rounded a curve and saw the town. It looked ordinary enough at first, ranch properties at the edges. Small houses lining the main street, business fronts that appeared long abandoned, except for one building at the far end, a diner with a distinctly retro appearance. The kind of place you'd expect to find excellent pie and strong coffee. The driver immediately suggested stopping for lunch, but as they rolled slowly down the main street, that unease transformed into something heavier. The air itself felt thick, resistant, as if they were pushing through water. The driver's foot eased off the gas pedal without conscious thought. Then they saw the first person, standing in a front yard, leaning against a short fence, just staring. No wave, no smile, no acknowledgement beyond that flat, unwavering gaze as the car crawled past. The face showed no expression whatsoever, neither friendly curiosity nor hostile suspicion, just empty observation. The diner came into view. Through its windows they could see every person inside, people in booths, people at the counter, people standing behind the counter, and every single one of them was staring out at the street, at the car, at them. All of them were motionless, silent, just watching. The driver's hunger vanished instantly. The passenger, who had said nothing until that moment, spoke with quiet urgency. "This place isn't right." Neither of them could articulate what was wrong. The town looked real, the people looked real, but everything about the scene screamed danger in a language older than words. Every instinct they possessed howled a single command: "Get out, now!" The driver didn't turn into the parking lot. Instead, she downshifted and accelerated, speeding through the rest of the town as every head in that diner tracked their movement. The faces never changed, never blinked, just watched with that same terrible emptiness. At the edge of town, a fork in the road appeared. The driver turned right without checking the map, driven by pure animal need to escape. Only after they'd driven for 2 more hours did the suffocating atmosphere finally lift. Later, when they tried to find the town on their maps, they couldn't, despite detailed records of where they'd travelled and camped throughout the trip. That particular town had left no trace. It had no name, and they had no memory of which road they'd taken. Just the lingering image of those faces staring out from that diner window, watching strangers pass through a place that perhaps shouldn't have existed at all. The doubled moment. Sometimes a time slip doesn't just show you the past, sometimes it shows you yourself. The witness was young, still in school, still navigating the awkward years between childhood and whatever comes after. On this particular afternoon, he sat on a bus heading home after visiting a friend. The bus descended a steep hill, one he'd travelled countless times before. Everything was routine, familiar, forgettable, until he looked out the window to his right. Walking up the hill, moving against the flow of the descending bus, was a man. Nothing unusual about that. People walk up hills every day, but something made the witness look closer, made him really see. The man was him, not a look-alike, not someone who vaguely resembled him. It was him, unmistakably, impossibly him, but older. 10 years older, maybe more, the same face weathered by time, the same build matured by age, walking up that hill with purpose, heading somewhere the younger version couldn't yet imagine. For one frozen second, their eyes met. The older man stopped walking, the younger man stopped breathing. They stared at each other through the bus window, separated by glass and years, and something far more profound than either. Then the bus moved on, the moment shattered. The older man vanished from view. The witness spent weeks trying to rationalize what he'd seen. Was it just a look-alike, a trick of light, or his imagination constructing meaning from coincidence? The mind does sometimes see patterns where none exist, but he couldn't shake the memory or forget that moment of recognition, or the certainty that had flooded through him when their eyes met. 10 years passed. The witness, now the age he'd seen himself at, found himself walking up that same hill. He'd avoided it for years, despite living nearby, but on this day, something drew him there. He didn't question it or resist, he simply walked. Then he saw the bus descending the hill toward him. Time seemed to slow. He knew what was coming with the same deep certainty he'd felt a decade earlier. As the bus passed, he looked into the windows and saw a young face staring back, his own face, impossibly young, filled with the same shock and confusion he'd experienced years before. Their eyes met. The younger version's mouth opened slightly in recognition, while the older version felt time itself ripple around him. Then the bus vanished, but not just moved past, vanished. 1 second it was there, real and solid, full of passengers and forward momentum. The next second, the road was empty. There was no sound of an engine or any settling dust. It was just gone. The witness has returned to that hill many times since. He stands where he stood that day, searching for some explanation, some sign that the universe might crack open again and reveal its secrets. But the hill remains just a hill, and the road remains just a road. And he's left with the inescapable knowledge that for one impossible moment he existed in 2 places, 2 times, simultaneously connected to himself across a decade by nothing more than a glance through a bus window that may never have existed at all. The storm that wasn't. Weather can disorient anyone. Rain, lightning, the adrenaline rush of a game played outside in a summer storm. These things can muddy memory and distort perception. That's the rational explanation, the comfortable one, but it doesn't explain what happened during that game of tag near the high school. The storm had flooded the pond at the front of the school, turning the adjacent street into a shallow river. Lightning hadn't started yet, but the air hummed with anticipation. The witness described it as feeling electrically charged, not in the normal way before a thunderstorm, but something stranger, something that made the hair on their arms stand up for reasons that had nothing to do with static electricity. They were running through a backyard, friends visible nearby, laughter cutting through the rain. Then, mid-stride, the nausea hit like a physical blow. The witness dropped to their knees, eyes squeezing shut, arms wrapped around their stomach. The sensation was overwhelming, not just sickness, but a fundamental wrongness in their body, in the air, in everything. They opened their eyes. The houses were gone. The school was gone. The flooded pond, the street, the friends, all of it erased. In their place stretched an open meadow bordered by tree lines. Wild and undeveloped, the landscape was empty of everything except grass and sky and that same steady rain falling from the same overcast heavens. In their peripheral vision, barely registered, stood a structure, something to the right. They didn't turn to look at it directly. They couldn't, as the nausea was too intense, the disorientation too complete. They caught only an impression, something man-made, something that didn't belong to modern architecture, before their eyes squeezed shut again. 1 second, that's all they saw. 1 full second of a world that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, in the same space where a modern high school and suburban homes had stood moments before. When they opened their eyes again, everything was back. The houses, the school, the pond, their friends still playing, still calling out, completely unaware that reality had just fractured and reformed in the space of a heartbeat. The witness stood on shaking legs and walked home without explanation. The exhaustion that settled over them wasn't the normal tiredness from running in the rain. It felt deeper and heavier, as if something had drained not just their energy, but some fundamental resource they didn't know they possessed. Years later, they still remember that electrical charge in the air and still believe it wasn't natural. Still wonder if that strange energy somehow tore open its seam in time, allowing them one brief, unnerving glimpse of the land as it existed before development, before progress and the present day had any claim to that particular piece of earth. The weather was the same in both versions of the world. That detail haunts them. The same rain, the same overcast sky, and the same storm system moving over the same physical location, but separated by decades, maybe centuries, existing simultaneously for just long enough that a person caught between them could see both. The bedroom intruder. Not all time slips transport witnesses to different places. Sometimes the past comes to you. The witness fell asleep on the upstairs couch around midnight. Despite the late hour, sleep brought vivid dreams, 8 separate ones, clear enough to remember upon waking. Their mind was active, alert and processing. Then came the banging. It was loud and insistent, coming from the back door downstairs. It was not the muffled sound of a dream noise bleeding into consciousness. This was the kind of sound that yanks you from sleep instantly, violently, the kind that triggers every survival instinct humans have developed over millennia. The witness shot up from the couch, heart hammering. In the confusion between sleep and waking, they looked for a weapon and grabbed a tomahawk, the closest thing to hand. They prepared for an intruder, a break-in, and possible violence. One more bang echoed through the house, the loudest yet, and then silence. The witness ran downstairs, weapon raised, expecting to find the back door hanging off its hinges. But the door was intact, closed and locked, and from the bedroom came the sound of their mother's snoring, loud, steady and normal. They moved through the dark house toward the kitchen, where the back door stood undisturbed, and there, standing by the sink in the darkness, was their mother. She wasn't doing anything, just standing there, facing away, refusing to look at them directly. When she spoke, her voice was flat and repetitive, just wrong. "It's midnight, go back to bed. It's midnight, go back to bed." Something about her presence felt off, but exhaustion and confusion overrode instinct. The witness accepted the explanation, however strange. They went back upstairs, convinced themselves it must have been a particularly vivid dream, and returned to the couch. That's when they noticed the tomahawk was gone. The weapon they'd carried downstairs had vanished from their hands. They couldn't remember setting it down or even when they'd last held it. The memory simply ended. They went back to sleep. Morning brought a revelation that transformed confusion into something far more unsettling. The witness told their mother about the dream, the banging, the kitchen encounter, the strange interaction by the sink. Their mother's face went pale. According to her, the witness hadn't slept upstairs at all. They'd fallen asleep on the living room floor downstairs and hadn't gone upstairs until early morning, hours after midnight. But the witness knew they'd been upstairs, remembered the couch and the dreams, remembered waking to those impossible sounds and running downstairs that, if their mother was right, they'd never climbed in the first place. The tomahawk has never been found. The banging has no explanation. And the figure standing by the sink at midnight, claiming to be their mother while their mother slept in the next room, remains unidentified. Was it a dream, a sleepwalking episode, or did something else enter that house, wearing a familiar face, speaking with a familiar voice, trying to convince a witness to return to sleep while the real world and some other version of it overlapped in the darkness of the suburban kitchen? The witness doesn't know and has no way of knowing. But they're certain of one thing: whatever happened that night, it wasn't a dream. The missing weapon proves it. The timeline discrepancy proves it. The feeling of wrongness that still haunts them years later proves it. Something happened, something real, something that doesn't fit into any comfortable explanation about the nature of memory, sleep, or time itself.